to Shattering Myths. We're here with Larry, having called in from Florida, and Jerry McLaughlin, also on the East Coast. And the conversation is about an email that Jerry sent off late last night. He asked the question, how is it that Yahowah, that's God's one and only name, allows all Muslims to go to hell or to be annihilated? Are there not some Muslims that would have dedicated their whole lives to serving who they think is God? And Jerry, what you know is that my response is that Allah is Satan. That the Quran is a declaration of war against Yahweh's chosen people. That's what we've been talking about for most of the first 2 hours of the program.
Well, I agree, but even if it's outright Satanism, if somebody is only brought into a satanic family and they think that's what's right, my point is that I don't think a loving God would toast everybody for eternity for never having heard the truth. He could have made it as if they were never born. He could have made it with them feeling no pain. If they were never born, we would be returning it to the status quo. They never have to be born. They never ask for eternal life of God.
That's what he does.
I can understand that, but I can't understand punishment for eternity for somebody just because they embrace the wrong doctrine.
Now, if they embrace the wrong doctrine, if they were victimized by religion, whether that religion is Christianity or Islam or socialist secular humanism or Hinduism, doesn't matter the religion. If they were ignorant of what Yahowah said and they chose to embrace the religion of their fathers, which, by the way, about 80% of people do. They embrace the religion of their father.
And politics, 80% of the college kids actually go with what the parents say because they don't know a lot about politics.
By the way, it's not what the parents... Can I just correct one thing, then, Larry, I want you to jump in. Yahowah was very clear. He said that the fathers corrupt their children to the third and fourth generation. He didn't say parents corrupt their children. And every systematic research study about children embracing either religion or politics is they pay almost no attention to the religion or politics of their mother. They are influenced almost universally by the religion and politics of their fathers. And so God was right when he said this is the consequence of religion. But God is not saying here, and never says, that if you are victimized by religion, that you're going to be tortured in hell. A, there's no torture in hell, and B, the victims of religion simply die. It's as if they never existed. Go ahead, Larry.
Okay, let me ask you something. If you're eating dinner and then and you hear that there's an earthquake, over in Turkey or Mexico, and 1,500 people die, what do you do?
Generally, I finish my food.
Okay. Now, if you get a phone call that says that your daughter or your wife got into a car accident and she's on the verge of death, what do?
I leave my dinner and I run to go to their rescue.
That's how Yahowah operates. In other words, if a person's known to him, when they die, he has to do something in order to empower them, turn them to a being of light, a spiritual being. Right. But if they're unknown to him, he does nothing.
Right, Larry, let me ask you this. Is it possible that the destination for Muslims, Satanists, etc., the Pharisees were power trippers that really want to lord over people, etc.? Is it possible that they get exactly what they want, a world without God, a world without Yahweh God, that is, and a world where they get some jockey for position and power for eternity?
Yeah, they do. They do.
They do. He said
they do. Yeah, absolutely.
He makes a differential. If you'd like to hear one, I mean, I'll be happy to give it to you. I mean, he talks about the people following those who removed his name from his own words, and he said those people are going to be disinherited.
Yeah, but what kind of state will it be? Like King of the Hill? Who would be in charge? Would the one called Satan or whatever his deal name is?
With no hope.
Why does it even matter? Everybody gets what they want.
So they
those who are
Yahweh.
Yeah, those, yes, right. Those
that's
who
their heaven. That's what they
right. Everybody gets what they want. God's eminently fair. Those who choose to embrace the terms and conditions of the covenant are inherited by God. They become His children.
Let me just ask this.
Let's finish this. Then those who do not know Him, who've chosen to go along with the flow, to father their father's religion, their father's politics, who do not know God, and God does not know them, they simply cease to exist. For them, there is no punishment.
You answered my question.
That's right. There is no punishment for them.
There is God or the devil. They really
that's right. That's right. They chose to be to align themselves with a false God and with a false political scheme. They chose to rely on man, and man will have disappointed them. They will simply cease to exist. There is no punishment for them. And that's how God is infinitely fair.
I never thought of this before, but there's a fourth outcome that they might say, okay, I don't want to live with God, I don't want to live with the devil, and I don't want to cease to exist. I just don't want to die. I want to keep living in this existing state. What about people who want that?
Who cares? It doesn't matter. Our universe exists based upon Yahowah's design. As a matter of fact, one of the things I was going to do in this hour, and maybe I'll do it on Monday, was just going to go into an analysis of what it means to be a carbon-based life form. I was going to speak of the human composition. I was going to speak about DNA. And I was going to speak of the universe, right, the universe as it exists. But it's not just 6. It's 6 plus hydrogen, which is the 1, and that equates to the third most prevalent element in our body, which is nitrogen, which is 7. And how collectively, that tells us all about God's design. God designed us.
I've never understood nitrogen because it seems like we need it for nothing. It seems like it's there for a useless filler, 78% in the atmosphere. Why on earth do we need nitrogen?
No, without nitrogen, there are no plants, and without plants, there's no animal life, and without nitrogen, there is no DNA, there's no human life. God designed us to have a mortal existence, to which we were given free will and a conscience that enables us to analyze that which we observe with by having animals have a consciousness, which means that we can observe and respond to our environment. And then He gave us
breathe pure oxygen and no nitrogen and survive?
Yes, but you can't survive without nitrogen.
Nitrogen is a human being alone, without the animal.
What you breathe. You can breathe and survive with pure oxygen, but life can't be sustained without the presence of nitrogen. So the question is really irrelevant as to what you breathe. But the reality is that God designed us so that we would have a mortal existence, a finite lifespan, under which we were given free will and a conscience, so that during that time we could observe, we could consider, and then we could choose. And if you do not embrace the terms and conditions of the covenant, then at the end of your mortal existence, you will cease to exist. You got the gift of mortal life, but you squandered it.
But you forgot the last one, share with others. Once you get it and you understand it and you choose it,
it's not a requirement.
Try to reach out to others.
It's not a requirement. It is
a out of love.
Yes, it is. It's why we do this program.
Because we realize it's not a zero-sum game.
But it's not a right.
But it's my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge because you have rejected understanding. I also will reject you from being priest for me because you have forgotten the Torah of your Almighty. I also will forget your children.
And we drink from our own cisterns as well, and that's leaning upon our own understanding.
So Yahowah answered your question, Jerry. He answered your question. He said that those who are ignorant of my Torah, of my teaching, of my covenant, and how to participate in my covenant, will cease to exist. They will die, and then their souls will be destroyed. That's what he said is the consequence of ignorance. But that does not, there still is one other place, and that is that God cannot allow unpunished those who have perpetrated religion and politics.
But it's ironic because they don't think it's punishment. Those people, when they get to that destination, will think they arrived in heaven.
They're going to be.
For them it's heaven because they're in charge, or they think they're in charge.
Well, in charge is unknown. Let's describe who goes there and what they will find there based upon what we're told.
Well, no true God and separation. Okay. So go on that.
So who goes there, according to Yahowah, are those who engage in religion and politics and militarism that lead people away from him. So you're not talking about the victims of religion here. You're talking about the perpetrators of religion. Hell is going to be a very religious, political, and militant place. All right?
Kind of ironic.
So if your heroes are presidents, you'll probably find them there. If your heroes are generals, you'll find them there. If your heroes are religious leaders, you will find them there. If, in fact, you are an advocate for the religion of Christianity or Islam or Judaism or Hinduism or socialist secular humanism, and if you lead people away from God, there has to be a punishment for that. Otherwise, God couldn't be just. But the punishment is really interesting. God doesn't say, I'm going to see to it that you're tortured. There's no mention of torture in Sheol. All Sheol is eternal separation from God. And all souls and all spirits who have chosen to oppose Yahowah and lead others away from Yahowah will spend eternity in what's depicted as a black hole.
Is it a free-for-all in there? Is there consciousness? I mean, we describe it.
Well, there has to be consciousness. Otherwise, there wouldn't be eternal separation. So the consciousness becomes eternal. Spirits, by the way, are eternal. So Hasatan's spirit.
On a day-to-day basis in this black hole, a world separated from Yahowah.
We are not told. I have no interest in knowing. Don't care. Not going to go there. And I do this program to discourage people from making that their final destination, from being religious, from being political, from being militaristic, because it's doing those things that will cause you to spend eternity in Sheol. So all I know is that it is eternal separation from God, and it is depicted the same way scientists describe a black hole, which is infinite in time, but finite, a single point in relative dimensions. So it is an eternal prison in which souls and spirits who have chosen to oppose Yahowah will spend all eternity unable to escape, and the anguish that exists there is the anguish of having eternal awareness, knowing that you were in opposition to and you led others away from the one true God, the creator of the universe, the author of life. And knowing that you made that choice and that you are incarcerated in a black hole with other miserable spirits and souls, that will be anguishing. God doesn't have to torture anyone. Welcome back to Shattering Myths. We have Jerry and Larry on the line. We've been talking about the three destinations for human souls, that everybody ultimately gets that which they choose. God is ultimately fair. The subject we're talking about, guys, too, is the reason that most agnostics are agnostic. Thinking agnostics recognize that the religious perception of God, whereby God would say, love me, or I will see to it that you're tortured for hell forever, that God, it would be sadistic. And so, it'd be a monster. So they are agnostics because they recognize the religious depiction of God is utterly stupid. But, the other side of that coin is a God that's all loving and all accepting would also be a monster. And the reason for that is, look what religion and ignorance and politics have done to this planet. We have turned this planet into a living hellhole. If God were to say, everybody is welcome into my home, and you can bring your religion and your politics and your militarism in with you, the only difference between heaven and earth would be that you'd have an eternal onslaught of these hellish conditions. And for God to do that, he would have to be insane.
Can I add something here?
Sure.
There's we're talking about Islam, and by the way, my wife's Iranian, okay?
Yeah.
So, I know something of Islam. She's no longer Islamic, by the way.
Right.
But here in Manya, 7:21-23, there's this group of people, and they're standing before Yahowah, and I want you to look at this as kind of a prophetic, it sounds like charismatic Christians to me. Many will say to me, in that specific day, Lord, Lord, did we not speak inspired utterances and prophecy in your name, drive out demons in your name, perform many mighty miracles in your name? And then I'll profess to them, I never knew them. So this tells me something. It tells me that they will literally be so convinced of their own self-delusion that they will stand in front of Yahowah and tell him that he did all this for them.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that's the hubris of religion. I'm never going to talk them out of it. You're never going to talk them out of it.
The key word there is new. I never knew them. The root word for new is an intimate koinonia. Well, that's Greek. But I mean, the real word there, Craig, could you give the closest words in the English language to what that means?
The real word is yada, because Yahowah does not speak Greek. He spoke Hebrew, and so the word that he used was yada, and yada means to know. It means to know in a relational sense, and he's saying to and he's speaking of Pauline Christians, is the group that he's speaking to, and he's telling the Pauline Christians, I'm sorry, but you are not welcome in heaven. Go away. I do not know you, and you do not know me, is what's implied there. And then he said, he concludes it by telling them that their problem is that they're Torahless, that they chose to ignore or to be repulsed by the Torah, which is the nature of Pauline Christianity. And as such, they are not welcome. In fact, the preceding line, Yahusha actually tells them that all those who say, Lord, Lord, will be excluded from heaven. Not anyone calling him Lord, Lord will be invited to heaven.
Not everyone. And then Torahless is thrown out and copied in favor of evildoers in a Bible.
Yeah. But
I find a very interesting parallel here about knowing. Let's look at a relationship with a wife. Let's say you marry your wife, and you know her well before having sex with her. Before getting married, you know her heart, you know her ins and her outs. You're knowing her, and then making love with her is an extension of that. On the other hand, let's say you're a Muslim, and you pick 5 wives for the day, and if you get tired of one, all you have to do is say publicly in a public square 3 times, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, and she's no longer your wife. It's more like a prostitute. So if you have somebody like that and you just have sex, you don't know what her favorite color is, you have no idea what her sister's name is, you don't know where she likes to go for a holiday, you know nothing about her, you don't know her at all, you're just having sex with her. That's kind of in a way what it reminds you of, but I didn't mean to be so crude.
Yeah. Well, in terms of Islam, unless you're Muhammad, you're only allowed 4 wives, and the fourth is the fourth is a rotating position, so that it allows for rape and prostitution, so that you can temporarily have the 4th one filled by a rape victim or whatever you wish to do. In Islam, women exist solely to satiate the carnal desires of men. So there is no concept of love in Islam. It is only sex in Islam, and therefore not love, because there is no emphasis on the family relationship. But you are right. The issue that Yahowah has, and the word for covenant in Hebrew, bereth, is also the word for marriage. And it's based on a man and woman coming together in love. And then after they know one another and they have formed a relationship together on the concept of marriage, then having children and then raising those children. Welcome back to Shattering Myths. We're talking with Jerry and Larry about what I think is one of the top 20 most profound insights that have been made available through the research that can be found free at yadayah.com, intro2god.org, questioningpaul.com, or even at prophetofdoom.net. And that is that the Christian and Islamic position on heaven and hell is fundamentally errant, that it is wholly incompatible with God's own testimony, and that God describes the consequence of not embracing the terms and conditions of the covenant every bit of 1,000 times in his Torah, prophets, and Psalms. And every time that he discusses it, maybe 100 times, he describes the consequence of being ignorant of his Torah, prophets, and Psalms, of his guidance, of his instructions, of his covenant, as being the death and destruction of a soul. And the death and destruction of a soul is completely different than the eternal separation of a soul. A soul that is eternally separated does not die and is not destroyed. And it's amazing to me that Christians can't figure this out, because the testimony is ubiquitous. And yet, I have never, ever heard a single Christian convey this profound truth. And it dramatically changes the perception of God, who he is, what he's offering, what our choices are.
And that's why they don't get it. I said I'd mention something on air today, and I want to do this for a fellow down in South Africa named Paul R.W. He goes by Paul Kodesh. He took over the Questioning Paul group on Facebook. There's now 170 members after the edits that you did.
Wow.
And that went up from like 80 to 170 members in there now. So
yeah, even the first edition of Questioning Paul had per capita, had a bigger influence in South Africa than it did anywhere else in the world. There was a fellow who goes by the name of Koos, who was the first to pick it up. And Koos was very much like so many of us that had come out of Christianity. We were floored by what we discovered when we analyzed Paul's testimony and juxtaposed Paul's testimony against Yahowah's testimony and Yahushua's testimony, and discovered that Paul was a false prophet. And Koos was he's a South African who read it, and unlike most people around the world, it's everyone who has read Questioning Paul, the first version or the updated version, which is now twice as long. 100% of people who have read QuestioningPaul.com have disassociated themselves with the Christian religion with Paul. There hasn't been a single person who has read it who has remained a Christian. I think it would be impossible to do so. But Koos was a member of a Messianic community in Republic of South Africa, which was fairly large, and he began to share what he learned with Messianics, who typically blend Pauline Christianity and Rabbinic Judaism together to create their Messianic movement. And initially, there were many hundreds of people from Republic of South Africa that would write me and say, our community is alive with the truth. It's been a profound difference. And of course, we have yet to be able to publish the revision of Questioning Paul on the Questioning Paul site. It's still got the old version because of a number of software issues. But the new version is available through this friend down in South Africa, through your site, Larry. It's available through a site that is called YHWH-QRA.com. And Richard, I think it's Bless Yahowah, is Richard's site, and it's available there. Yeah, BlessYahowah.com.
By the way, Unpopular Truth.
Okay.
And you can just get to it by way of Larry Hendricks and ask to join, because it's a secret group on FB, but we keep it that way. We're not into, we can go into other areas and debate if we want to. We're into sharing words in there, not debating what Yahweh's words say.
Yeah.
We're Jerry Wing, and I think it's important for anybody listening that we're not in any way, shape, or form lessening the person that they may refer to as Jesus, or really Yahusha or Yeshua.
Yeshua is just a Babylonian. Let's replace the name game.
I'll become
Mashiach.
Right, and then the Greeks called him Jesus, but
no. The Greeks did not call him Jesus. The name Jesus was first used in the 17th century. So no.
Or the Christos?
No.
And they used a placeholder on
there is in the right in the 69 pre-Constantine manuscripts of the eyewitness accounts.
But here's the point I want to get out.
There was no Jesus. There was no Christos.
The person, our anointed Messiah, our anointed Savior, who came to show the truth, he is the one we still serve. He's still centric in this thing. In fact, we didn't lower him.
No. Oh, yeah, he's lowered, absolutely. Yahusha is a diminished manifestation of Yahweh. He's a diminished manifestation of Yahweh. We ought not worship him. We ought not focus on him. He came for the express purpose of being a living manifestation of the Word of Yahweh. His name means that he is Yahweh saving us. He is the diminished corporeal manifestation of Yahweh, which means he is in essence, from a point of view, a toenail clipping compared to...
Yeah, but he's still supernatural. I'm saying he wasn't just a man, a great prophet. He basically... When he rose, he was so different that nobody could recognize him.
If you are looking at focusing on Yahusha, your focus is misguided. Yahusha would say the same thing.
I think you're misunderstanding. Okay. I'm not very artful the way I'm saying it, because I got off on the wrong foot there. What I'm saying is the core being of what truth was at the time anointed Messiah, anointed Savior came.
Messiah.
Yeah.
Messiah means the work of Yahweh.
Does the work of Yahweh.
But when he was here at that time, that was what was supposed to be a continuation of the belief, etc. Instead, two people veered off. The rabbinical Judaism veered off into a cult, and Pauline Christianity veered off into a cult. So it's not that we're against the original truth that he brought with him and everything, but we're trying to get back to that. And we're not, and I think a lot of people would think this is something like a Jehovah's Witness thing or a Mormonism thing or whatever, and it's not at all.
What happened is that the rabbis began to view the Torah, instead of instruction and a freeing document, they began to view it as a list of endless laws. But what Yahweh writes in Yashayu is this: and she will rest on him the spirit of Yahweh, the spirit of comprehension and discernment, the spirit of advice and empowerment, knowledge leading to understanding, reverence and respect for Yahweh. And by the reverence and respect of Yahweh's spiritual endeavors, that would be the Moed Mikra, and the result, not by the appearance of his presence will he adjudicate, and not by listening to hearsay will he consistently speak and reason. In other words, he doesn't listen to hearsay, he wrote it.
Yeah, and he doesn't want us to focus on his physical manifestation because it's irrelevant.
What I'm trying to say is, it's not a dead man on the cross like we see in these paintings and stuff. No. He's pointing us into Yahweh, because we cannot understand Yahweh in our mortal sense. That was as close as we could get to seeing a being that would be like Yahweh without getting toasted, right? I mean, how much more of Yahweh can we see?
Yeah, Yahweh introduces himself and reveals himself and becomes known to us through his Torah teaching. That's the
wouldn't he incinerate us if he just showed up face to face with us right here in this existence?
Of course, and that's the reason that he told the children of Israel once he had spoken the entire Torah to them. They objected and said, you're just too brilliant. Your voice is too strong. Your presence is overwhelming. We can't take this anymore. And he said, all right, I get it. I will come back the next time that I come back. I'm going to come back in a diminished corporeal form. And now that doesn't mean that Yahusha was the entirety of God or that he was all God. He wasn't. The only thing that made that child that was given to us, the son, the child that was born, the son that was given to us, Yahweh, was the presence of the set-apart Spirit. And as we learn from his own testimony, the Spirit left him. In fact, he was quoting Psalm 22 and Psalm 88 when he said, my God, why have you separated yourself from me? So the body that was and soul that were hanging on the upright pole that represents the doorway of Passover, that body and soul was no longer God. And so God did not die. The physical body representing the Passover lamb died. And that body, Larry, as you know, was incinerated that night in keeping with the Passover instructions.
So he quote-unquote resurrected, but not exactly like the way you picture it.
No, not resurrected.
Came as a light being,
no.
so that nobody could recognize him. His own disciples look at him and say, hey, who are you? I don't get it.
Yeah, resurrection would be a bogus term. He on Bikurim, after fulfilling matzah, and matzah is the most important day among the three. Matzah is infinitely more important. What he did on matzah, his soul going into Sheol, so that we don't have to go into Sheol. And he does, by the way, describe, now that I think of it, he does describe what his soul endured in Sheol. So there are
horrible.
There's some
Dowd described it in the Psalms, right?
You're right. So and all Dowd is doing is providing us with a eyewitness of what would happen. So it's Yahushua's testimony of what happens to his soul in Sheol, and it's horrible.
And the crucifixion,
right? And so on Bikurim, which means firstborn children. On Bikurim, what we have is a reunification of Yahushua's soul and Yahweh's spirit, and he becomes an entirely different and new creation, just as we, when we are ultimately allowed into Yahweh's home, we are too going to be this integration of our soul or consciousness with Yahweh's spirit, and you are correct. Yeah, the thing that Christians don't get is that if there was bodily resurrection, the way that would have been proven is everyone who saw him would recognize him. But the only common denominator in every one of the Bikurim depictions is that no one recognized him. Not his disciples, not his own mother. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Shattering Myths. We've been having a discussion over this period of time of what I think is amongst the most profound insights in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, that those who are ignorant of Yah's covenant, those who do not avail themselves of the terms and conditions of the covenant, are not tortured forever in hell. They simply cease to exist, and that's the vast preponderance of human souls. We have Glenn on the line. I'm sorry, Glenn, for having you on hold for so long. The phone systems at GCN don't allow more than two people at a time, and you were the third in a queue.
Okay, that's fine. No problem. I'll try and be quick. I just wanted to rejoin Jerry a bit. Well, first of all, about Sheol, as far as I'm concerned, the most salient feature of Sheol is that the presence of Yahweh is there, and it's real unpleasant. Other than that, I personally don't really need to know a whole lot more. But
let me interrupt you for a second here, just because your statement is profound. I have found great happiness in coming to know Yahweh. And I want to be where he is. I really want to have this experience of camping out with him and exploring the universe. I think it's going to be grand fun. And now to go back and to think that I'd be even remotely interested in being separated from the most interesting, compelling individual in the universe, I would agree. I think it would be hell to be separated from Yahweh. So I'm in total harmony with that.
Yeah, even Yahushua, before entering into Sheol, as when he first experienced the alienation from that spirit, begins to cry out, even while on earth, even before entering into Sheol.
Right.
So obviously, that's like the central worst part of it. Then everything else is just yuckier. So I really don't care to know that.
Yeah.
It's just bad. That's real bad.
Right. Yeah, you and I are in total and complete agreement there. There's on the opposite side, if I might extrapolate here. On the opposite side, I don't know a lot about what it's going to be like as light, to be able to transform ourselves from light to matter, so that when we're exploring another solar system out there and another planet, another solar system, and exploring what life is like on that planet, and we're there with Yahowah taking this great voyage of discovery, this concept of being able to get there as light and then take on corporeal form so that we can enjoy the warmth of its sun and the wind and sing and eat and drink and all the kind of stuff that's fun. I don't really understand how all that's going to work. But, I don't need to understand all the mechanism of it to know that sounds pretty much fun to me.
It's just real good. That'll suffice.
Real good.
Inexpressibly bad and inexpressibly good. Got it.
Yeah,
no
I'm with you.
Okay, now the other thing I want to rejoin Jerry on, as a nurse and a scuba diver, because he's kind of making me squirm, about humans being able to breathe only oxygen. What's the purpose of nitrogen? Numerous decades ago, when dinosaurs roamed the earth and I was a child, Bill Cosby's first comedic album on 33 1/3 RPM, vinyl LP, was called Why Is There Air? And Bill Cosby's tentative conclusion was that the purpose of air was to fill, being a gym teacher from Temple University, his conclusion was that it was to fill footballs, basketballs, soccer balls, volleyballs, etc. But he didn't question the purpose of nitrogen, at least. And let's give Yahowah a little bit of credit. First of all, the answer is no, humans can't breathe only oxygen because you become oxytoxic and have seizures. Anyone with nitrox or mixed gas experience in scuba diving knows this. Okay, so, let's give Yahowah some credit for having a purpose behind all the little building block things he's put on the periodic table of the elements and putting them together the way he's put them, that it serves a purpose in making his, life, living mechanisms work. But anyway.
I brought it up for a reason. I have a daughter who was born not breathing, and she was put on anywhere from 30% up to 100% oxygen for many weeks when she was born to keep her alive. Looking back at it, they should have mixed nitrogen in with it.
She was put on. That would have been administered through a vent mask, and the air would have been mixing in with it. Okay, if you put some, so there was other stuff going on there of which you weren't aware. Okay, oxygen. Anyway, no. You need
pure oxygen oxygen is required for metabolism, but the issue with pure oxygen is also it can be deadly. Yes, you can overstimulate, but it's also it's so combustible that if remember the Apollo, I don't know what number it was, but that had a pure oxygen or a nearly pure oxygen cabin, and they had blew up on the pad because oxygen is so combustible. Glenn, would love for you to join us on Monday, because we're going to talk about science and the composition of life and of carbon, of oxygen, of hydrogen, of nitrogen, and all things of the building blocks of life. Please join us at that time. May God bless you all.